Oh boy. Okay, everybody, thanks for joining this meeting. I'm sorry it's starting 15 minutes late. Our Salt Lake Community College classroom had a little bit of a technical snafu, and our room computer just wasn't jiving today with our laptop. So we're doing the best we can with what we've got. I promise you that there are folks in the room tonight behind me. And we're going to try to play the mute and unmute game appropriately so we don't, gosh, I'm going to have to turn off that chime. So we're not in this endless loop of sound that sometimes occurs when folks, you know. So sorry, Elizabeth, will you remind me where the chime function is so I can turn it off?
The chime should only be on with the waiting room. So I'm not sure what chime you're referring to.
I don't know. I
And
keep hearing a chime.
I'm not hearing anything.
Okay,
I think I'm gonna people directly message or put something in the chat. That's
got it. Okay, handy. My hallucinating room. Am I sweet? Okay, there's still a chime. Just deal with it, I think.
I'll check with Patrick. I'll text him and see if he knows of something I don't know. So I'll hang tight for just a few minutes
Thank you kindly.
and I'll chat you.
Okay, let's get going. I heard right before the meeting that we're gonna have to rearrange the agenda tonight. Let's see. Let's see. I know we have people here. We've got 3 major agenda items tonight, and everybody kind of let me know that they have to present in the first hour, which is kind of tough because we just had the first 20 minutes or so of our meeting chopped off. So I guess we're going to see what we can get accomplished with the time that we have remaining. And Representative Briscoe, I see, is already on tonight. Representative Briscoe, can you stay on until 8 o'clock? And I'm going to have to figure out how to view folks other than just the city library so I can see hands. I don't know why I can't see the top of the screen. Let's see. Gallery will work. All right. Let's see. Where is our good representative tonight?
I'm here.
Hi there, Representative Briscoe. Do you want to jump off the meeting and go watch the State of the Union and come back in an hour?
It will be on so many YouTube channels.
You're saying that we're somehow more entertaining? Oh boy. All right, okay. So that means that we can put off talking about House Bill 505 property loss amendments until then. All right. So should we start then talking about, can we put you on pause for a little while? Would that be okay? I know you got the same treatment at Central 9th on Monday. You're so patient. Oh, and yet, okay, should we start then with learning about the South Salt Lake plan? Would that make sense?
Be fantastic. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Would you please introduce yourself? And I invited South Salt Lake here. It might seem weird. What? Yes, ma'am. Oh, excellent. Why we're a Salt Lake City neighborhood. Why the heck do we want to learn about South Salt Lake? Well, you're our immediate neighbor to the south. And actually, as it turns out, your downtown is closer to us than Salt Lake City's downtown, which is actually pretty close to begin with. So I thought it would be important for us as a neighborhood to learn about the investments that are going to be made in the South Salt Lake downtown and sort of learn how that's going to, be talking to our plans. And I thought it would be exciting to learn about those investments to, think about maybe some of the empty storefronts or empty lots on Main Street or West Temple that maybe folks might be inspired to fill those in once they learn about some of the pretty big plans that are going to be coming down the line in South Salt Lake. So I'm going to take a mute and then let you all unmute. If you would, I know this might seem weird, but if you would raise your hand on Zoom so you would pop up and I can co-host you there so you could share your screens.
Oh, great. So I am definitely unmuted. I don't want to create a psychedelic endless loop here. All right. So my name is Jordan Swain with Arcadis. It's a urban design and planning consulting group. We've been working with South Salt Lake City for about a year now. It's been a very, very fun ride, and it continues. But we've been focusing on, as you said, the downtown of South Salt Lake, primarily looking at connections. Oh, whoops, some of these slides didn't come through. Anyway, primarily looking at connections between land uses and transit critical improvement infrastructure. So things like Central Point Station, the streetcar station, the platforms, bus loops, bus boarding and alighting areas, that sort of thing, to figure out how we can make this environment transit oriented, right? That's the term we would typically use, optimized for transit use and so forth. Central Point is an incredible transit station. It has one of the most transit rich, it's one of the most transit rich service areas in the entire system. So we're extremely excited to be working on this project. Just a little bit of background about the public engagement that we've already facilitated. We've been using an online engagement platform called the Foyer to host different information updates as they come around, different iterations of the plan. So you're welcome to Google South Salt Lake Downtown Connect, and it should take you to a link there. In addition to that, we've also had a variety of in-person engagement events, including pop-up booths during very hot times of the year. They got really sweaty. And then also, in addition to those, we had a very productive charrette that involved all of the private development interests around Central Point Station. A charrette is basically just a workshop where a variety of interests come together around a table, and we workshop many different ideas until we get a preferred synthetic alternative, right? A preferred alternative that everybody seems to agree with, and that makes sense as a consensus. So anyway, just jumping, I know we're short on time, so just jumping straight to some of the recommendations that we have come to as the preferred alternative. So just to orient everybody, on this plan, 2100 South is to the north here, State Street is to the right of the plan. And what we've done is we've begun breaking up the plan area into districts, right? We really like to think of land use and infrastructure improvements in terms of districts, so that we can start to define the tone and the character of those areas in the environment before we start talking about actual, hardscape changes and so forth, technical changes. So within this plan area, we've broken it up into the West District, which is the leftmost district. We're envisioning that will be predominantly office and high density residential uses. The city is very interested in establishing some kind of a parking district. So one of the parking structures of that district would be located within the West District. And then the really important thing is that this district would be transit supportive and would blend into the adjacent district, which is the Utopia district, which is intended to be a transit-oriented development, right? So everything in there would be absolutely oriented to the Central Point transit station, and the infrastructure of that station would be seamlessly integrated into that environment. As we moved to the right, we have the Maker District, which is it's one of my favorites. So this district, in this district, we'll be attempting to repurpose a lot of the industrial architecture and landscape and so forth, and create live work spaces for new businesses that are trying to incubate new ideas or that need research and development space and so forth. So that will be a true kind of an entrepreneurial district, which is the western bookend to what we're calling the dining district. So within this district, we're thinking that the pervading tone would be that of entertainment and dining. There's a huge appetite for pubs and bars and things like that downtown, which we all know are very conducive to community building and so forth. So that's where all that would occur. And then left of that, where the S line or the streetcar station occurs, we're calling that the S line district, which would be another great opportunity for a transit-oriented development. And we'll get into some of them. So yeah, we'll get into some of the modifications that we'll be recommending in order to establish these things. In this slide, starting with the two transit stations and Central Point Station, we're recommending. And sorry, my PDF is not. I'm also having technical problems. I'm going to close this really quickly and reopen it so that all the pages load. Oh, that was a bad decision right there. Let me connect to the VPN real quick. Yeah, that was a denied. I know. I've got some chalk, maybe some chalk. Okay, here we go. Let me get back to that. Page. Okay, so we're talking about the Central Point Station and some of the moves that we're making there. We're thinking that right now we've heard from the community that there's a huge disconnect between the streetcar platform and the tracks platform. Right, there's a lot of fencing around it, a lot of gates, a very austere environment that makes it unintuitive, unpleasant, et cetera, et cetera. So to fix those things, what we're doing is we're taking away the center loading platform, right? So right now you cross the track into a center loading platform, and that's where you would board and alight from the train. We're taking that away and instead shifting the boarding and alighting areas to the side, right? So you can see those light gray areas. That's where people would board and alight. And then the station or the side loading platform to the right would be shared with this streetcar line that would come up against this building, right? The Commonwealth Room. So it would create one contiguous platform experience for UTA patrons and so forth. And in the process, it would also free up room along Utopia to create a very healthy, a very reinforced crossing for bicycles and pedestrians, right? So Utopia would become this really, really nice backbone for active transportation modes and so forth. So going back up to this framework plan, you can see how this dashed green line is the alignment or the recommended alignment for Parley's Trail, right? Parley's Trail runs along all along the S line. And what we're suggesting is that Parley's Line Trail at West Temple jogs north for a block and then crosses at Utopia, and then jogs back down south at 400 West, and then continues on for its existing alignment. So that would be a huge improvement. And then going over here to the S line station, the streetcar station, we're making a fairly ambitious recommendation for that station to close down a portion of Central Point Place, which is the street that is north of the station, and convert that into a transit plaza, right? So this would have facilities for biking, for pedestrians, also for waiting areas, et cetera, and also would tie into the Parley's Trail and into the redevelopment of the block to the south, right? So it would have this really seamless connection into the redevelopment of the south, where there would be an additional plaza that bookends that diners paradise is what I call it, the diners district. So those are that's how we're recommending to reconfigure the two stations. There's much more to be said about the connections in between, but I think those are the major moves that this group would care about. One other move, actually, so one other move that's very significant is we're proposing to reconfigure Haven Avenue, right? So Haven Avenue will become a very important east-west automotive connection between State Street and 3rd West. And so, and in doing so, we're allowing traffic to be directed or channeled around the very important pedestrian areas and destination streets and so forth. So anyway, so those are some of the big moves, but really I'd rather talk about it with the group, and if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Oh, let me minimize.
Not that the diagrams are cool and interesting.
Minimized.
Folks online have questions.
Well, I guess I either explained it really well or it wasn't as interesting as I thought.
I'm excited about your proposed tree line boulevard. Whenever I drive, to the South Salt Lake Post Office, I'm struck by how few trees there are in South Salt Lake, which is very similar to how I feel about street in Ballpark and some other cross streets in Ballpark. So I wondered if is there an urban forestry plan for South Salt Lake in general?
We have one in progress right now in conjunction with our Parks Master Plan, but we're looking at getting something more up and running. But that is a big complaint for a lot of people working for the city and residents too, that there's just not a lot of trees.
But this urban forestry plan that's in motion right now definitely was motivation to find a way to incorporate more trees along the street. And we just feel like if we're going to be introducing a new auto prioritized street, it's very important to landscape that properly so it doesn't become an unpleasant experience or add to an already kind of austere environment. Yeah. Oh, well, so one detail that I didn't mention, and this will fit into that question, is that South Salt Lake was just approved for an HTRZ, which is a housing and transportation reinvestment zone, which in short is basically it's a tax increment district. It's a district that allows the city to repurpose revenue that's generated within it towards transit infrastructure, to fund transit infrastructure. It's an extremely progressive economic development tool that I think will really accelerate the timeline. This plan is being created with about a 10-year horizon. So a lot of these improvements are expected to either be initiated or completed, probably just initiated, most of them, within 10 years. But we've been working really closely with UTA to understand exactly how soon the station reconfigurations could happen. And I think those using tax increment from that HTRZ district, depending on how South Salt Lake City wants to actually use that tax increment, if it's in a bond or if they want to use it in real time, it could very well be within 5 to 10 years. Could be.
Well, it's interesting to us because the 900 South track station is also those new zones. So we're supporting it.
Yeah. Yeah, right, right.
There's only a couple of properties that. The part of Ballpark that designated as the belonging to one person. I think it's off the- Ballpark. Can you remind us where did that funding come from? Is it like the Wasatch, Regional Council? Is it UTA? Is it federal government?
So the H,
Keep on postulating.
yeah, so the HTRZ, so the tax increment would actually be revenue that's generated from within the HTRZ.
But how is that set up? How is the HTRZ?
Oh, so the HTRZ is approved by a committee at the state. It's through the governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, GOEO, approve these different areas. And it's based on a very extensive analysis that the economic development director of South Salt Lake set up with, I think, several consultants probably. But basically it defines a list of needs and uses of these funds, and then the costs, and then it identifies a gap in between, right? So it's saying South Salt Lake could potentially do all of these really impressive infrastructural improvements. Here's what the cost is. Here's the budget that they could get to, and then it identifies the gap that would remain, and that's where the tax increment comes into play, as it funds that gap.
So what taxes? Property taxes, sales taxes?
I unmute myself, I'm going to be creating horrible sound. What do people think I should do?
Oh, I can mute. Do you want me to mute?
Some folks asked, or I saw online that people said that they couldn't hear what I was saying. Some things that I asked are, where does this, I'm going to butcher this, HTRZ district, how is it set up? And then you guys heard it clarified that it's through the governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. Look at me reflecting what I've learned. And what else did I ask? I don't know. I asked some questions about urban forestry because I'm obsessed with trees. You guys know this. Let's see. What else did I ask, guys?
The timeline, that was the 10-year, right?
Oh, yeah, the timeline. Okay. Thank you, Brandy. Okay. Damien has a question, and we can all read it. All right. What participation, because some folks only listen to this, have the two cities had for this and planning for this area? He rightly points out that Salt Lake is currently planning the 300 West area. We're going to hear about that next. How are these plans all compatible on both sides of the street? I think this is a pretty good point, considering I think one of my favorite features of driving down West Temple is the sign where the biker is warned that if you know exactly the sign I'm talking about, because you started laughing, of the biker like hitting the sidewalk and flying off his bicycle, or her, or there. It's a rough sign. Kind of indicates incompatibility. Janice wants to add to this.
Reviewing on the 300 West corridor. In that draft document, there's some discussion of South Salt Lake's general plan. So I guess, has there been any further discussion with this group and the plan that they're working on?
Yeah, we've met multiple times to talk about, I don't know.
Project friend. Oh, you're gonna unmute?
I guess I can't. We've met multiple
And I'll just say, we've mainly invited Daniel just because he's such a pleasant person to be around, an all around good guy.
Ten-year timeline, trees, incorporating the S line, that was interesting. I've seen some press about interest regarding thinking about, this is an issue that we experience in our neighborhood that we think about a lot, but the proportion of home ownership versus rentals. And I know that's something that's discussed in the South Salt Lake City Council. Does your plan address home ownership opportunities at all?
The plan does consider housing attainability. So while we don't go into any great depth about the split between ownership and rental.
Can anybody hear him online? On the online world?
I am unmuted, so, and I have a robust voice. So anyway, we've taken a lot from the HTRZ application, which actually talks quite a lot about housing affordability because it is the housing and transportation reinvestment zone. And then I've also worked with an economic analyst to understand exactly how the amount of affordable housing that's described in the city's plan could be distributed within the area. So the plan doesn't go over ownership at all, but it does go over housing attainability and affordability.
Yeah, and I will add that as part of our HTRZ application, any new development in that zone is required to have 12% affordable housing at an 80% AMI. So that's
Ownership's a tough nut to crack. Sorry if I seem hesitant, it's because I'm trying not to do the endless loop of sound. I feel like I already did that once. Should we transition into the 300 West plan? I feel like it's a good, it's a natural transition since folks already had questions. Janice.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for presenting your, I look forward to getting all the way across 21st and visiting South Salt Lake as it grows.
On 300 West.
I know.
So
Tell me where I can find her
she's
on.
right below you.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now. Can you guys hear me okay?
Hello, Marianne.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me okay?
Please say something.
I have been. Can you guys hear me? Hello? Hello, hello?
Please say a few more things.
Can everyone hear me? It looks like people on the Zoom call can hear me. Can you hear me now, Amy? Okay, awesome. Well, I'm gonna share my screen here and let's see if this works. Okay, So, like you said, I think this is a good transition to give you guys a high-level overview of where we are with the planning at the 300 West Corridor Plan and the Central Point Station Area planning on the Salt Lake City site. My name is Marianne Stuck. I'm a planner and urban designer with Design Workshop. We are a national planning, landscape architecture, and urban design firm. I'm personally based out of Colorado. I've been doing quite a bit of work in the Salt Lake City region in the last couple of years. Just quick summary, the station area where we are working on, the plan on the left shows in the red square, our planning area. You can see the purple dot at the bottom is the Central Point Station that Jordan was just talking about. And then you can see the half-mile radius projected from that Central Point Station, which is the planning area for the actual station area plan. And then on the north, you can see the other purple dot, which is Ballpark Station, and that half-mile radius. So we are just right south of the Ballpark Station planning area, and our project area takes basically half of the circle of the station area around Central Point. The map to the right shows the area a little bit more detail. 1700 south is the limit to the north, 2100 south, the limit to the south, and the limit of South Salt Lake. The tracks line in red dash line there, I-15 to the west, and then West Temple to the east. Just probably you're all very familiar with this area, but the corridors currently identify as a very kind of big box, regional, commercial, industrial place, very auto-centric area. But there has been recent efforts from the city and planning to make improvements in the area and to aim to make it more pedestrian-friendly, bike and transit-friendly. And one of those has been the new bike lane along 300 West, and there's also new redevelopment happening in the area with mixed use and multifamily buildings. So our vision for the project is to establish a plan of action that can be used as a framework to direct future change and try to transform this area into a more walkable, mixed-use district that is not just friendly for cars, but also for pedestrians and transit users, that can have a variety of housing types, but also maintains the existing businesses and encourages new ones as part of development. Very high level timeline of the project. We started a little bit less than a year ago. We have had 3 windows of engagement so far. One last spring, then in the summer there were open houses, the first online survey. Last fall, we had small group meetings, meetings with Planning Commission and City Council. And right now we're actually launching our second online survey tonight. It's live right now, and we're also launching a project website, a story map, where people are going to be able to access information about the project and also access the QR code for the survey that is available both in English and Spanish and will be open until March 30th to gather feedback on the proposed plan. As far as engagement, during these 3 previous windows, you can see some numbers there of how many people have attended the open houses, one-on-one interviews, focus group meetings. We also, on the first online survey, had about 400 responses, and we also had a social pinpoint activity online, which was a map where people could point to specific areas related to key questions. We had over 765 respondents for that exercise. And some of the key takeaways and the key themes we saw during that process were related to creating a mixed-use, walkable neighborhood, having more green areas, more trees, increasing housing options and affordability, but also maintaining the existing single-family neighborhoods, especially to the east side of West Temple. Supporting mixed-use developing, but also providing affordable commercial and warehouse space and not getting fully rid of those uses in the area. And then improving pedestrian safety, connections, and access to the tracks station. Now, talking about the proposed plan and responding to the things we heard during the community engagement, these are the 4 project principles that we are working at. So promoting a walkable district with various types of mobility, encouraging mixed-use redevelopment along 300 West and close to the station area, creating a system of public and private green spaces because there's not a lot of public available land. So we will try to encourage also green spaces and private redevelopments, and incorporating density near the station through a variety of housing options. Oops. This image here shows the overall plan view. Again, 2100 for reference on the south, 1700 on the north. The dashed outline on the north side is part of the ballpark planning area. And then obviously the one south of 2100 is part of the project that Jordan was just talking about. You can see here we have kind of color-coded different type of uses. So we have mixed use orange, residential yellow, and then the purple is either light industrial, office, or commercial use. And I'm going to go into the different areas of this plan here, so I'm not going to spend too much time in this overall view, but that just gives you an idea of the whole project plan. So to describe the different areas of the plan, we defined 5 different character areas that have different characteristics as far as the build form, the density, and the type of uses in them. So the first one is the Central Point TOD area, which is basically on the south end along 2100 South, and the closest one to the Central Point Tracks station. This area has a higher density development node. The proximity to the station is clearly an opportunity to incorporate different types of housing and also affordable housing as part of the plan with very easy access to transit. The idea is that all of these buildings are mixed use, so they would have commercial uses on the first floor or other active uses that hopefully help activate the street and bring vibrancy to the area. And a lot of these buildings are expected to include either podium parking or parking garages that could have green roofs or amenities on top for the residents of the area. The other thing here is we are proposing a larger setback between 2100 South and the tracks line in that block in the middle to create a linear plaza space along 2100 South that could also help connect pedestrians to the station and to 300 West. The area along 300 West creates a new urban edge along the corridor with high to medium density mixed-use buildings, also with active uses on the first floor to promote a more vibrant street. The idea is that as these buildings redevelop, the facades would ideally get closer to the street to create a more kind of pedestrian-friendly environment and trying to avoid the large surface parking lots right next to the street. The idea is also to support the vision of the bike path that has been built along 300 West and extend that one to the south to connect with South Salt Lake. And this view shows a little bit the character that we're thinking for 300 West. So you can see some taller buildings closer to the intersection to 2100 South, and then stepping down, but working with a scale and a typology that incentivize kind of pedestrian use and walkability. To create a transition to the more established neighborhoods to the east, the plan includes like a medium density edge that we're calling transition edge with linear park. This would be maximum 5-story buildings and then stepping down to smaller scale buildings or townhouse to transition to the single family neighborhoods. And we're also thinking that there could be a linear park with a multi-use path along the tracks line on either one of the site, depending on right-of-way availability. And this green space would also help connect the Central Point station with areas to the north. And this is another view that shows kind of the intent, the scale, and the character of that area. The area along 1700 South would be focused on residential and also some mixed-use buildings. So mixed use along the intersection with 300 West, but then turning most into multifamily residential buildings as you move east. There could be sort of opportunities for commercial uses in this area, but the idea is that they would be focusing on mixed use. And then the edge towards the west and I-15, we're thinking could have more of a light industrial, maybe creative office space character. In this plan, we're showing some of the big retailer like Costco and Home Depot staying at least in initial phases of the plan. That doesn't mean that those blocks could redevelop in the future and become smaller to kind of be incorporated in the new grid. But for now, we're showing this transition edge, that a place that could provide an opportunity for different uses and for keeping some of these larger commercial uses, and maybe some of the industrial buildings could be repurposed here and could allow for like a different type of redevelopment and also support job creation in the area. And then finally, this area is responding to the existing neighborhoods between the Tracks Line and West Temple. There are well-established single-family neighborhoods with a smaller scale and character. So the idea is to preserve that characteristic, maybe allow for small-scale infill or ADUs or townhomes and things along those lines as a strategy for providing more housing options and more affordable housing. But the idea is clearly to maintain the character and the scale of this area. And then finally, this is a diagram that just shows some of those key kind of connectivity ideas that are part of the plan, like the extension of the 300 West bike lane to the south, enhancing key pedestrian crossings along 2100 South, both by the Tracks Line and at the intersection of 300 West. The new mixed-use path along the linear green space next to the UTA tracks. And also the dash, like the darker gray dash lines, show new connections to create kind of smaller and more walkable blocks as this area redevelops in the future. And so with that, I'm gonna stop here and open it up for questions. And this is the link to the story map where you can find more information about the project. You can also find the QR codes to the survey where we're kind of asking the community to give us their opinion about some of the strategies that are depicted in the plan. And as part of our next steps, we will have a draft document ready for review probably towards the end of the month. And then we will have another open house on March 26th to gather also feedback about the proposed plan. So I'm going to stop sharing here. And do you want me to mute myself? No, I can't.
At how this works to, if you're muted, then I think it's not a problem for me to talk with the volume up. So what questions do we have about the plan, folks? Janice, I know you have questions. You're sitting there, you can't contain yourself. The questions are coming out of you. Janice, would you like to come up here so you can have your questions captured by this microphone? I would like for that to happen. Come on, Janice. Hot diggity.
It's very well put together.
That's fine. That looks pretty well put together. You have notes.
Over the place.
Yeah, oh well. Hi, everybody. This is Janice. Janice is one of the board members of the Ballpark Community Council, and we are grateful for her work.
Okay, I think because in our neighborhood, open space is a very big issue. And I was just looking at the maps that were provided, which shows very little green. And I think that what we're experiencing right now is it's already been documented in the ballpark small area plan, what a deficit of open space that we do have. And so, and we are seeing development along the 300 West corridor in our area. So in the ballpark area, it indicates that there is, the service level is very low. And so as we see these residential units coming online, those figures continue to decrease because of the number of units that are being proposed. So it's like we're never going to catch up or plan to actually provide that open space. And I know there's some talk of the public utilities building going away. I don't know what the acreage is there, but I guess it's how do we start balancing this out with the amount of density that is planned for this area? It's there's so many benefits as well that we need to actually mitigate as far as creating all this density. I know Amy always talks about the urban heat island, and what we're looking at is more air pollution and everything, something to address that. But so that's one of my concerns about this plan, is probably a more thorough analysis. I don't know what the numbers in the ballpark plan, like the area that was looked at for that. And let's see. Yeah, it's, like what are our pollution numbers in that area as well. So that's one of my concerns is trying to address that. And then also, it's just the environmental impacts of development, and how are you going to address that with additional green space?
So I think Marianne has some diagrams in the presentation that showed the intent to start capturing this private development and make them provide some level of open space that we haven't really captured with our current zoning. So I think we've seen the impacts of not requiring.
But I mean, it needs to be public,
And yeah, and there's
not a rooftop area.
So this plan, the majority of it is anticipating, I don't know. Sorry. There we go. We're good to go.
Let's see. I turned down my volume.
Okay, I don't know if people can hear me. Maybe they can. So the current draft plan is showing the majority of that open space captured through private space. We do have difficulty with purchasing new large open spaces. The anticipation for the ballpark
just to the north of this is that public utility space does turn over and can serve a wider region. It's not a small little park. It would be a fairly large property that could likely serve this block stretch here in our plan. So we didn't take the approach that there needs to be a large new park space here when there's a new large park space on existing city property. At least the anticipated big park spaces on just that north edge of.
Do you have a timeline for that?
We don't have a
I've
timeline.
never, I mean, I could go back to the ballpark station area plan to see, and I know that's actually
Yeah,
included in your plan, but if there's no timeline for that within the ballpark station area plan, that plan goes out, what, 15 years, 20 years? It's kind of depressing thinking that if that's not even 20 years away, to say like, well, that's what we're banking on.
yeah,
Well, and I guess I would also bring up the ballpark and the bees actually leaving, which is really kind of left out of this discussion, as well as your basing discussions on the the ballpark small area plan, which had no idea that the bees were leaving. And so I would also keep reiterating that the ballpark and the parking lot across from it is zoned public lands. And I would hate to lose something that's already there.
yeah. We're not dealing with that.
But I know you're not dealing with it, but I mean, like, you're referring to these plans.
Yeah.
And in the ballpark plan, that's where that number is. That's where in multitude of plans, it talks about not having this type of open space in this area. And as you continue to develop, the numbers get worse as far as how that area is serviced.
Gotcha.
If I may jump in, can you guys hear me? I don't know. Can you hear me, Amy?
Yeah, I think, like open space plan is one of the major issues for me. And
Can you guys hear me? Sorry, I was
I don't
trying.
know, some of these things are like I didn't really get way into, again, what's happening on I-15. And I mean, we talked about this before, but they do bring up, the Wasatch Front Regional Council's document, which was, new last year, I think. But it's still the continuation of expanding that freeway rather than looking at public transportation, other forms of public transportation. And again, that's creating more pollution in our area. And like I said, I'm not quite sure what the extent of that, like if they're coming all the way down from the north and the intent is to continue to expand that. Yeah, I don't know what that process is, but again, that is brought up in this draft, that document.
Plans.
Can you hear me over
Your
there?
proposal right here talks about the Wasatch Front Regional Council's new document. And I guess I would also say a lot of the pollution, I think that now that we're in the running for the Olympics, that one of those, an aspect of that is to clean up our air. So what are, plans like this doing to help with that?
I think competing microphones, I think, quite on.
Can you hear me now?
I don't know if they can hear me from yours. They can a little bit. I can hear you on the marker.
Who's projecting currently?
Your microphone's on, mine's not.
Sorry, I didn't mean projecting sound. I meant projecting images. Okay.
It was me.
Marianne was, and I think she may have been speaking as well, but I don't know if you could hear her.
Right. Okay. I'm going to be quiet for a second and turn up my volume so we can hear her.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry, I was trying to speak up for a while here. I was gonna say, I think that's a great point about the green areas. It is certainly something we have analyzed and discussed extensively throughout the project process. It is a challenge because there is not a lot of public-owned lands in the area that we can easily say this can be a park or something like that. So our recommendation will focus on tree lining streets as much as possible. And we actually have, this is not a policy plan that we're doing, it's a small area plan, but we have recommendations that are geared towards public realm guidelines that will include a minimum percentage of the sidewalk that should be shaded, minimal amounts of soil volume for trees, so you can have healthy street trees and create shade that helps with things like you said, like heat island effect, human comfort, and all those things. So that's one strategy we are recommending and developing as part of the plan. The other one is working with private developers and the city, thinking about incentives that could be related with height, zoning, and other things, and that would require private developers to build green spaces that are not necessarily inwards, like we're showing in that diagram. You would see like the donut and the green space in the middle. But if these incentives can be applied, then they would be required to build maybe some green spaces that are facing the street or the public space, so they could be used by everyone, and there wouldn't be private spaces. So, I mean, working with incentives in these type of areas is something that many cities have done in a situation that is similar, and that could be a strategy that I think Salt Lake can consider for 300 West to bring in more green, because we have heard that same from the public throughout the engagement process. I mean, people want to see more green spaces, they want to see more trees, so we're trying to figure out how we can do that without having publicly owned lands.
Which brings me to another issue as far as along the street trees, the new bike path and sidewalks on 300 West. I think the new development is coming online. And you can see where they've reduced the setbacks from the new existing improvements, where I guess, in my opinion, has made those spaces more uncomfortable. The buildings are right up to the sidewalk. And then on the other side, I mean, at least for the pedestrian, you've got bikes. So I think those have become, they're developing into an uncomfortable space. And, you know, like you already saw it on 1300 West, and really there's no space to make those type of improvements. I mean, not 1300 South, that's kind of the first indication, but now we've got more apartments coming online and they keep asking for reduced setbacks. So there's really, I'm like, minimal street trees. So that was another one of my concerns. And in addition, there's some that actually have utility poles right in the middle of them, where you just, I don't know, at one point they were talking about burying the power lines. It's like, oh, why didn't you do that when you had the whole street torn up? But anyway.
I want to correct myself before I leave a falsehood out there any longer. The public utility site is mentioned in the plan, and it is the implementation period is listed as being immediate. However, the way it's phrased is maybe a little disappointing. The action item is evaluate the opportunity for future green space on the current public utility site if and when the Salt Lake Public Utilities moves offices to a new location. So that's,
It's just a continuation of the discrepancies in open space throughout the city.
it'd be great if we could get follow-up on what the actual public utilities plan is, because we keep on talking about that as as an if and when possibility. I haven't, yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
And then Mariana has some diagrams, I think, that show the intent for 300 West and 21st South. Can you kind of
I've got pictures.
can we switch microphones?
Thanks. So I think we've seen that, what you're talking about, Janice, on 1300 South, definitely. And I think that was the intent of requiring a larger circulation zone. You can see that on the 21st South diagram that pushes, we don't even have that much right of way, but this is proposing that we get essentially more public space, more right of way dedication along 21st South to push buildings back away from the street, provide a more comfortable space for pedestrians, and also requiring at least 10-foot activity zone that even pushes buildings further away from the sidewalk, so that there's some space for some sort of dining opportunity there, or even a wider kind of plaza feel. And then similarly, 300 West also calls for a wider setback than zero setback than some other areas are showing, like, and 1300 South.
That's not what is being built now. And
Yeah.
almost, I mean, these new projects are coming forward with asking for reduced setbacks.
Yeah, and we don't currently have policy, I think, for those areas that say that those setbacks shouldn't be reduced. I think this is setting specific policy for people to look toward, for the planning commission to look toward, that says there should be some sort of setback here to allow even the larger street trees or a more comfortable feeling along the sidewalks. You're not just pushed right against traffic.
I know this is outside of the district, but that's kind of like, oh, there's a couple things. The problem, it's like we're looking at these in small spaces, but 300 West goes quite a ways. And there's also the Tech Link study out there, and I don't know how, it wasn't mentioned in this, but there's that process going on, which does propose, there's talk, and this is in the small area plan, is a line from the granary, which would come to the 13th South track station, which would cross 300 West, which, creates its own issues there when we've just developed these bike paths, and it makes a really weird connection into, I know it's further north, but it's still going into the ballpark station as well to come around that corner.
Where is that proposed to connect to that main line? I know you say it's coming into the ballpark station, but
It doesn't come right into the station, it's north.
yeah,
It's
north. So
Around Paxton Avenue.
yeah,
which is like a really strange spot, tight, very tight.
I can show you on Google Maps after. It is a pre-existing abandoned line.
Okay.
So if you won't,
I know it is.
Yeah, you should know.
But
Yeah.
there's also a point in this new draft that you have that said, I haven't been able to find it exactly, that talks about there's an area there that's actually private property in that abandoned railroad line. But anyway, that's,
By the target, is that what we're talking about that?
Yes.
is that where,
Yeah,
well, it will
yeah.
come across there. So I mean,
I
like,
don't know what the tech link documents currently say, that's,
but I mean, there's that review going on.
yeah.
And so it's kind of, again, as I've talked, coordinating all these planning efforts
Yeah.
for an area that's, like, just not this.
Due
far.
to time, let's
Okay.
put a pin in that one.
Okay.
But I know that there are plenty of folks who are interested in that, and specifically, like, for example, HK Brewing, they really want to know what's going to go on with that spot. And I know that they've put some of their own effort into like trying to keep it clean and that kind of thing. So it's not that we're not interested
Yeah.
in what the heck's going to go on with it.
But I just want to add one thing to look at is the total rewrite of the, the form-based zoning, and how does that all get coordinated into all of these plans that have been formed and then approved with new zoning, and then now you're
Gremlins everywhere.
doing a whole city rezoning.
So that's definitely something we're coordinating with right now. And that's gonna be the second phase is aligning this plan with our efforts for that mixed use zoning consolidation effort.
Okay. Sorry you take up so much of your time.
That's what he's here for. Sorry.
And as we said before, he's such a nice guy.
Well, spread your
Okay.
study link everywhere.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
I don't see any online.
But you must have some, Amy.
Oh, I don't know. I just saw that the biggest word on your word map was parking, and I didn't see it mentioned in any of the key takeaways.
And I don't remember the context of that parking.
I assume it got
Both
mentioned in
things.
several contexts.
There were a lot of people unhappy with the massive parking lots that dominate the area. I think that was mentioned a lot in those original outreach efforts. That's why I think why. But Mariana.
Yes, can you hear me? I think Amy,
Sorry, let me turn up my volume to hear. Hey, Mariana.
yes, can you hear me now? Yeah, that one graphic that was just a myriad of graphics in the one page, that was a summary of the social pinpoint activity, where actually people pointed at things that they didn't like about the area, and it was related to the big surface parking lots that are right next to 300 West. So it wasn't referring to need for more parking, but actually pointing out at the large surface parking lot as something people didn't like about it. Yeah, I don't know if there are any more questions there or.
In the back of the room, Kevin is saying that somebody likes it, the parking that is, because the parking is often full and it's one of our city's major economic sectors, and it is the second largest tax base in the city.
Parking fees.
But we better get a move on if we're going to talk about Love Your Block, and we better talk about Love Your Block because the deadline for Love Your Block grants is the end of this month. And we've been trying the Love Your Block patience of the Love Your Block people.
Well, thanks, everyone. Appreciate the time. Thank you.
All righty.
Thank you.
Talk
Sweet.
away.
Awesome. Well, my name is Chamala Hernandez Garcia. I'm a neighborhood specialist within the mayor's office. And one of my main tasks as a neighborhood specialist is to kind of oversee the Love Your Block program. And for the last 2 years, Love Your Block has been working on the west side of Salt Lake City. And for 2024, we are now working within the Ballpark neighborhood. And what Love Your Block does is we provide funding and coaching to residents to kind of do their own neighborhood-led improvement projects. And it's different for each neighborhood. It's different for each street. So it could be a multitude of things. It could be public art. It could be a community cleanup. It could be a community tool shed. It could be alleyway activation, all sorts of things, as long as it's kind of submitted by the community and is for the community. We have 2 current opportunities happening right now. The first one, as Amy alluded to, was the mini grant. So this provides funds up to $2,000 for a little bit larger, more technical projects. But of course, all that does come with kind of the technical assistance to it. That's why we have us staff kind of work the interior kind of city processes. And that application closes on the 31st. And the second one, which is very new to this program, is the Community Action Fund. And the Community Action Fund is intended to fund very shovel-ready and kind of quick hit projects. And these are kind of up to $500 at a maximum. And what projects will be funded through this stream will primarily be community cleanups. So the money was likely going to be used for dumpster grabbers, trash bags, things of that nature.
You never use those in this neighborhood.
Plenty of dumpsters to go around. We got all the money for them. Not all the money, but it's a common request. So community cleanups, alleyway projects, since we hear alleyways are a big pain point for many community members. So providing funds again for the cleanup of that and possibly the activation of some of these alleyways, depending upon the condition. And lastly, basic exterior home repairs. These are very basic exterior home repairs, nothing extremely technical, not really replacing giant windows, but things like basic caulking, basic asphalt repairs, porch repairs, repainting, restaining some of these items. But that application, the Community Action Fund, is going to be a rolling application, and it's going to be open until September 30th or until all of our funds have been expended. But yeah, just here to let folks know that we are available to contact and to consult with, especially if you have a project or idea and you don't really know where to start. We're here to meet you and to kind of help develop that plan all the way through so you can apply. Does anybody have any questions?
I feel like most of the examples I've seen of the $2,000 grant variety are like, that's an ingredient. And there are other, contributions from, a bunch of folks came together because your average totally awesome mural actually might run you slightly more than $2,000. Maybe.
Oh yeah,
maybe
murals are very expensive, but thankfully we've had some artists that have like agreed to essentially donate their time and just give their skill. There's plenty of artists in the neighborhood that you can find, like on Everyday. Uprock is a very popular shop. I found a lot of artists there that worked on a lot of other West Side murals, and they've been a great partner to work with. But as Amy mentioned, $2,000 only goes so far, and that's why we tend to loop in other kind of stakeholders. One of the primary examples, I think, is the shining star, was the Glendale Community Learning Center, who applied for a mini grant and was awarded $2,500. Back when our maximum was a little bit higher when we had first started out. And eventually Home Depot stepped in and essentially donated an additional $10,000 for a complete garden revamp. So bringing in local businesses and stakeholders is really key and crucial if you especially want to take your project to the next level. Yeah.
I've heard about, let's see, at least 4 different blank walls so far that people have independently contacted me about so far and said, have you thought about putting a mural here? I think we need one. And I don't disagree, but I'm definitely these aren't going to be all things that the community council submits. We're going to need we're going to need initiative from the community. So I agree. We have a lot of blank walls, but we're going to need some community members to pull it together as well and say, we know some artists, we got some wall, let's do it. And we're happy to facilitate and support, but yeah, but I agree. We do have plenty of blank walls. Happy.
Yes.
If we have a question, can I reach out to you directly?
Yeah, you can.
And
Yeah.
is your contact information on here?
It is on there, but I also have a few business cards up here that I can drop by in a second. Yeah.
Do you have a beautiful idea for 300 West, John?
300 West is already beautiful.
Oh, that's a good, that's a great point. That's a good point.
Another follow-up question is, if we have, like, for example, I'm thinking of the Clean Team program that we've been organizing with the Homeless Resource Center. Is there can these funds be used to help fund that? For example, we're giving.
The answer is yes.
Gift cards to the homeless individuals who go out and help clean up. Can it be used for that kind of thing?
So when it actually comes to purchasing gift cards and things of that nature with city funds, it's a bit tricky because there's a few other ordinances around it. But there are other ways to incentivize and to get people to buy into that. So granted, the city can't be handing out gift cards all the time. We typically need to have a vendor do that. But if there is a partner that is willing to kind of take that on their own and supply that, then it can be implemented because it's not crossing the city's hands per se.
I need to talk to you then.
Okay, yeah, but
That partner.
oh, even better, even better. But yeah, the funds could be used for community cleanup, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the Clean Team would be an excellent use. And I think there's plenty of things that the Clean Team needs that could be funded, like the grabbers and the supplies. And
Henry has a question, I believe.
oh, I might have to turn up my volume. I did.
Henry, I think you're good to go.
Does it turn up the volume?
It's up. Can anyone in the chat hear Henry? Because we can't hear Henry from in-person end. Okay, nobody else can hear Henry.
Henry, you can type your question if you want, but we should be able to hear you. We want to hear your question.
Yeah, I would love to hear it.
We're so jazzed about people wanting to do projects.
Yeah, it's gonna be a busy summer, y'all. It's gonna be
Yeah.
a busy summer.
Yeah, I reached out to Fit to Recover and asked them, like, who did your totally awesome mural on the north side of 1331? Because I think that's, oh, let's see.
Okay, so no, you don't need to have an explicit letter of support. However, if you are able to attach that to your application, it makes it so much stronger when we actually go through the grading process. Oh, I'm the grant writer for Fit to Recover. Yes,
Awesome.
amazing. So yeah, if you are able to apply those kind of letter of recommendations or from businesses or even general residents, we love to see it.
I can't imagine that Fit to Recover is not going to be able to get letters of support from.
Yeah, I hear it on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Henry,
Okay.
can't you get a letter of support from Zions Bank? I know you can. Sorry. I don't mean to, I don't mean to. I feel like you've got partners just coming out of the woodwork who want to line up and say that we support you. I mean, seems that way to me.
It's a good skill to have.
Yep.
I'll see what magic I can work. Look forward to it, Henry. Any other questions in person or via online? Okay, I will.
All right, thank you.
If anybody wants anybody anymore, I'll just leave a few extra. Would you like one?
Fraser wants to tell us that there's an application plan for banner signage throughout the neighborhood.
All righty, we'll be expecting that then, Fraser. Seems like I've had 2 requests for Popular Grove signage as well. Come in this already.
And I think Carrie's going to talk about one of the most exciting collaborations that we've been excited about for a long time. I'll just say excite. We hate the 9th South off-ramp. We just hate it. I mean, it's great for getting where you need to go if you're on a certain area of the interstate. But that's about it. Other than that, Carrie, what are we going to do about it?
So thank you, Amy, for giving me a few minutes to talk to this group about what we're calling the Meade Avenue Underpass Project. And that is the West Temple off-ramp as it spans from, oh, thanks, Henry. I hope that you will come and join us then, since you live near this. But the underpass is on Meade Avenue from West Temple to 200 West. And anyone who's been by there knows that that absolutely disconnects the neighborhood from Ballpark from Central 9th. And we want to change the use. We want to change what happens in that space. And we've been talking to UDOT, and they seem to be a willing partner with us. Public Lands has so far shown some pretty strong interest in helping us rethink what we could do. And I know my good friend Fraser, who is on the call as well, wants the whole infrastructure to go away. I think Amy does as well. I do. I support that. I want it all to be gone. But that's a longer process, and UDOT has zero interest in that right now. And so we need to make lemonade out of the lemons that we have in the underpass area. And so lots of interesting and fun things going on right now. Our District 5 representative, Councilmember Mono, when we met with him, told us that he is hot on this project. He likes what we're trying to do and will lend whatever support he can to help us. When we talk about reimagining that land, we think about pickleball courts. No one can complain about the sound of the pickleball when it's at a freeway underpass. And really kind of leaning into the shade that we have. We have shade there. We have, lots of parks don't have shade. We would have shade in this spot. Some people have said they want a dog run area. Other people have said they want a public gathering place where we could have food trucks come and things like that. What we want to do is go through a community process to really see what we could do with that land. And on that community process, it takes some organization. And so what we hit submit on about 10 days ago was an application to the University of Utah Department of City Planning, the Masters of City Planning. And our presenter here tonight is a graduate of that program, and said that he thought that this is a great project for one of those students to take on. Councilmember Mono put this on our radar. We applied for it, and hopefully we will get a student who will take this on to help us as we plan for this. What we're doing in the short term, we are going to apply for 2 different grants through this Love Your Community Grant Program. And hopefully, if we get both of them, then what we do if a student selects it is we're able to say, hey, we have some stuff already rolling to help you. So thing number 1, we know that a mural on some of that concrete infrastructure is part of whatever the final plan will be, what we want to have there. So we will apply for the mural money. We know that we need to go out and raise additional money. And we know that 2,000 or even 10,000 won't get all of that concrete covered in murals, but it at least might be a start. It might be something we can see happening quick. So that's the first application we'll be putting in. The Central 9th Community Council is really excited about it. We have a subcommittee actually that is working just on this underpass work, and we would encourage anyone from Ballpark who wants to be on that subcommittee, get your name to Amy and let her get it to me so that we can start including you in these planning projects. The second grant we're going to apply for is the $500 cleanup. And our idea is that we would kind of go in and do a big cleanup of that underpass area to kind of get it to blank slate. Part of that cleanup would be working with UDOT. UDOT has agreed in concept to remove the fencing. We think we met with Dennis Ferris, who is the one who originally requested the fencing because he thought it was going to solve some issues that we were having in the community. And he now said it didn't work. UDOT, it didn't work. Let's take the fencing down or move the fencing toward the berm so that we have access to that land so that we can repurpose it for the community. So that's what we're doing. And I want to pause there and ask if there are any questions. I hope I've painted enough of a visual picture for you that you can kind of think about what might be. We've shared some really cool pictures of what other communities have done. Other communities have put in, exercise equipment underneath those, that outdoor stuff, the outdoor calisthenics. Other communities have done climbing walls on the concrete infrastructure. Other communities have done dog runs. They've done pickleball courts. And all of them incorporate art. And I've been seeing some of the chats go on about art. That's why we're applying for this mural grant, because art has got to be an important part of whatever we do here. It's a beautiful way to build a community space when we can build it for lots of different uses and include public art as part of it. So I'll pause there and take questions.
Carrie, you've got that pitch down.
It's getting there, isn't it? Well, great. If there are no questions, then Amy, that's if you can take names and get them to me, we will include people on our subcommittee. I do want to give a shout out to Gerald Burt, who owns the property, the 1015 apartment building. He has been fantastic. He let us meet in his building, and it's really cool because the meeting space in his building overlooks this very area that we're talking about. And I look forward to the day that we have a big celebration there and we all get to go up on that landing outside of that and take pictures of what we as a community create.
We have to get a before photo too, Carrie.
Oh, I've got plenty of those. What did I can't read Dennis's whole comment.
Dennis, do you want to unmute and contribute it yourself?
If that's an option, sure. I was just mentioning that the fencing in that area, just a Band-Aid. It was the best we could do at the time. It was all that UDOT was willing to pitch in. But I will definitely always prefer the beautification, the activation of a positive engagement of the space by the community. And that's definitely the ultimate solution to any problems that might occur there. So this is fantastic. Thank you very much, Carrie.
And yeah, and thanks, Dennis, for your active participation and help. You've been a great addition to the conversation.
John, Joel, do you want to talk about what we've been doing in the community lately, or do we want to hold off and wait another month when maybe we have a larger audience? Hi, Representative Briscoe.
What would you prefer?
I don't know. It's your valuable time too. John, how do you feel?
You know, can I just give a short piece of information that I didn't have when I spoke to you earlier? And people can spread it around and we can give a little bit more detail next time.
Sounds good.
1 year ago, the legislature approved $2.5 million in homeless mitigation funds. Salt Lake City up until last year was not getting very much of the mitigation money. That money was used to hire the law enforcement teams from the police department that are now inside the 2 homeless resource centers, including the Gil Miller that's had by Sergeant Meinzer. The money was reappropriated as $2.5 million and ongoing. So we don't have to go back every year to ask for $2.5 million. Communication I had with Andrew Johnston today, that money is available for Tier 1 and Tier 2 centers. They're not necessarily homeless centers. Wide abuse shelters is the term I'm looking for. So there are some domestic violence shelters that are on the list. The key here being whether they have at least 25 beds or 50. So Tier 2 cities have shelters that have over 25 beds, less than 50. And Tier 1 communities have shelters that have over 50 beds, of which we have 2. There are 11 across the state of Utah. There are 11 shelters that have more than 25 beds. 2 more will be added this year. Sandy will open a shelter for a medically vulnerable population, unsheltered. And South Salt Lake is going to be adding a second family shelter, so that there will be a family shelter in the south end of the county in Midville. And then there will be a shelter a family shelter in the north end of the county and farther north in South Salt Lake. So that $2.5 million will be split 13 ways instead of 11. Salt Lake City anticipates there'll be a slight decrease in the amount of money available. I don't know that would change Salt Lake City's plans dramatically, but I do not speak for Salt Lake City, and I know that people who live and own property around the Gail Miller HRC have been very appreciative of the efforts of law enforcement in the area, and I'd certainly support keeping them there as a means of the city showing some, as I told the legislature, I am proud to live in a city that cares deeply about helping our unsheltered population. But the people I don't think we've shown appropriate faith to are the people who have property, whether it's a business or a home, who live by these shelters and who have been impacted, who've had disruptions in business, who've lost property. And I think that's a conversation we need to elevate to a higher level. And, put me on next time and let's have a bigger go at this. That's a real brief executive summary of the issue.
Agreed. And I do want to thank John. Both John Margetts and I went up to Capitol Hill and advocated for the community at the House Health and Human Services meeting to try to get more funding for the area around the Gail Miller. This is something we believe in too, and we thank you for your advocacy. We know it's definitely an uphill battle. We definitely got some bipartisan support, but not enough. So, but
that's something we can talk about. Not all of it had to do with the homeless shelters. Some of it had to do with their some politics, but we got a year to work on it.
Thanks for sticking with us, Representative Briscoe.
Always good to learn about what's going on in people's neighborhoods. Everyone wants something similar. We want a neighborhood that is fun to live in, is productive, is healthy, where we feel safe. And we do it in different ways, and we have different challenges depending upon where we live. I appreciate the efforts of the city. I love the mural concept and the cleanup concept and the art concept. So, I was an art major for just a little while at the U before I decided I could love art, even if I wasn't really good at it. And I love seeing cities. South Salt Lake's done a wonderful job of embracing outdoor art. And it's fun to see Salt Lake City putting some effort into it too.
Maybe you can come by and pick up a brush sometime.
If you show me where the lines are and give me the color, I'll be great.
All right, folks. Speaking of an uphill battle, I feel like that might have been tonight's meeting, given the fun mute and unmute and volume game. So thank you for playing tonight. Any other remaining questions? Like, how can we avoid this game in the future? Love your block. All right. Let's keep the ideas going this month. Looking forward to hearing about some murals, some cleanups, etc. All right. Happy March, the Ides, etc. See y'all.